Are you worried about the upcoming elections and whether we'll get the leadership we need? Are you anxious that too many people won't vote at all? I'm Steve Buckingham, chair of the UU Legislative Ministry of Maryland, and we're working to expand our democracy by increasing turnout and including more people and communities that are often underrepresented at the polls. In this video, I'll explain our approach and why, as a faith community, we are doing this when many believe they should be working for a particular party or candidate. First, let me tell you why this work personally compels me. I grew up in Atlanta before moving to Philadelphia in 1965, largely unaware of the deadly struggles going on for civil rights in the South. That same year, events in Selma, Alabama, captured the nation's attention as civil rights leaders led a march from that city to the Capitol in Montgomery to raise awareness of how African Americans were being prohibited from exercising their right to vote. The marchers were met with violence by state troopers, including serious head wounds suffered by John Lewis. Then Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. called on people of all faiths to join them in Selma, and UU minister Reverend James Reeb answered the call. 2 days later, he was murdered by white supremacists. But that was not the end of UU involvement. After Reverend Reeb's death, Viola Luzo, a lay member of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Detroit and mother of 5, told her husband that there were, quote, too many people who were just standing around talking, end quote, that she had to help and that she was going to Selma. Once there, she volunteered to do anything asked of her by the local activists. And 2 weeks later, she was shot and killed by members of the KKK. Viola Luzo gave her life for the rights of others to vote. For me, our efforts are a continuation of this sacred work that honors the memory of those who died for this right. Our strategy focuses on increasing voter turnout through direct personal contact and developing relationships with potential voters. We want to engage authentically with others, doing deeper dives about our shared values and building community. We believe strongly in supporting communities of color, youth, and poor people, and making their voices heard through the ballot box. We have 3 reasons for following this strategy: 1 practical, 1 derived from our faith, and 1 imposed by a promise we've made. The first reason we do this is purely practical. When people feel that their voices don't matter or don't see a candidate that they like, they often don't vote at all. This results in a smaller number of people deciding who will lead our government. And when all communities are not heard, it distorts the actual will of the people. Increasing turnout is the most practical way of assuring that our government truly represents all of us. How we do this is also practical. When voter registration, education, and turnout activities are done by a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, they are more effective in increasing voter turnout than any political campaign. The studies have shown that being approached by nonpartisan groups instead of parties or candidates have a significantly higher impact on turnout. While this always has the risk of encouraging someone to vote in a way we personally may not like, we believe that our focus on communities that have been marginalized by the existing power structures will encourage participation by people who are more likely to support our values of compassion, interdependence, and love for our world and the humans that inhabit it. As someone who lost an election once said, "The people have spoken. It is always good when the people speak." Secondly, our faith teaches us to affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. Conscience is that small voice inside that tells us what is right and what is wrong. It reminds us when we see or do something wrong, and it calls us to speak out when we see injustice or harm being done to others or to institutions we hold dear. It is something that requires us to hold fast to our beliefs and our positions in the face of opposition, ridicule, or even oppression. Standing for principle is what conscience is all about, and as such, it is intensely personal. On the other hand, democracy is a group activity. It literally means rule of the people, plural. It is based on the belief that everyone deserves a vote in matters that concern them, and that government should not make decisions about people without their consent. Voting is a personal right, but is exercised in a very public way. It is how groups of people can participate in decisions that affect them. It is so important to a modern free society that it becomes a duty, one that each of us should exercise in order to direct the course of our society in directions that represent our values. We believe that it is critical to increase the number of people who choose our future leaders. Those who don't vote lose power, and their perspectives are lost to those who hold office. We intend to support local community groups in marshaling their power and raising their voices on important issues facing our society. We intend to focus on encouraging people of color, eligible immigrants, youth, and low-wealth people to exercise their rights as citizens and make an impact on who is elected. Finally, members of our congregation have repeatedly expressed a belief in the beloved community. We have promised each other to work towards a multi-ethnic, multi-faith, inclusive community where poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated, and disputes are resolved by peaceful conflict resolution and reconciliation of adversaries. This will require engaging with others outside of our own like-minded connections to build bridges with others. Where we can find common ground with other groups, we should build collaboration towards common goals. Where we find those with contrary views, we should build ways to communicate without rancor or personal criticism. While this is often uncomfortable, we are convinced that connections can and should be made with those holding opinions different from ours by making sure that our conversations are authentic and non-threatening. We seek to encourage people to re-examine their values and their opinions of those they see as opponents, even enemies. We want them to rediscover a sense of community with people who they have not seen as being like themselves. If we engage these folks with love, it may have a positive impact and help to heal the rifts that have become so dangerous between factions in our country. Our work here backs up the lip service we pay to building beloved community, since we intend to engage in real, meaningful conversations about values that we hope will continue past the elections. By fulfilling our promise, living into our covenant, we can achieve integrity between our stated beliefs and our actions. So join us in this quest to impact the elections in November. For more information on this effort, check out our website at uulmmd.org. And stay tuned. We'll be providing more videos shortly on how to effectively talk to potential voters. Thank you.